Andrew Yang is aiming to connect Americans with his new political party. The former presidential candidate announced he is leaving the Democratic Party to form the Forward Party. He claims the nation's current two-party system is what's fueling more partisanship and widening political polarization. I spoke with Yang earlier to discuss his new party and the lessons he learned from running on the Democratic ticket. So, Andrew, I remember first meeting you back in 2018 when we spoke in studio about this idea of universal basic income. Since then, you've, of course, run for president. You've run for mayor of New York City. And as we know, Eric Adams was just elected mayor. What was your reaction to his win? And what do you think about his vision for New York City?
I'm hopeful that New York City is back on track, and I wish Eric Adams every bit of success in helping lead us in a better direction. I mean, the truth is that New York's been going through a very, very tough time. It's why I ran to try and help. And I believe that New Yorkers are very, very hungry for hopefully a different form of leadership than we've been getting over the last number of years.
Well, given your experience with ranked choice voting in New York, what do you believe are the benefits to that system? How do you feel the process, along with open primaries, could help solve what you refer to as a broken system in America?
Even in New York City, Elaine, 900,000 New Yorkers voted, but it shut out independents and Republicans from that Democratic primary, which we all know determined who the next mayor is going to be. We need to include people from every political perspective, and right now closed party primaries are distorting the incentives for our elected leaders, where they need to placate and please the 10% most extreme partisans on either side, which is one reason why it's not working at all. We can see that it's becoming more and more polarized and not much is getting done. So the shift to a combination of open primaries and ranked choice voting will realign our representatives' incentives around trying to deliver for 51% of us, which is the way it should be, as opposed to just pleasing the 10 to 20% most extreme partisans on either side.
Well, let's dig into this a little bit more. What experiences did you have as a Democrat running for president that led you to conclude that the U.S. needs a third party?
We can all just look around and say the duopoly is not working. The political incentives are not around getting anything done. It's around blaming the other side and just playing you lose, I lose back and forth while the people are losing. That's why 62% of us want an alternative to the duopoly. And we're being told you can't have it, which really makes no sense on the face of it. Because if you look around the world, the UK has 5 parties, Germany has 7 parties, Sweden has 8 parties, and on and on. These are democracies that are actually more responsive to the will of the people, and also, by the way, more resistant to authoritarianism. Because if you have a two-party system and one of them succumbs to bad leadership, then there really are no incentives to stand up to that leader, which is why our founding fathers never would have wanted us to have only 2 parties. So this is something most Americans sense instinctively. A majority of us want to change. And so it's time to change. It's well past time to change it. And we have to evolve and advance as quickly as we can.
Specifically, though, Andrew, how did that manifest, though, with your own experience, running for president? Because it was very clear very early on that you were not necessarily cut from the same cloth as other candidates. When we saw you on debates, on the debate stage, you were coming at it from a very different perspective. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I enjoyed campaigning, meeting so many people, but you're right that I wasn't an ordinary Democrat. I kind of thought I was going into the process, which is maybe one of the funnier parts. But the truth is that if you navigate a party primary on either side, you're not talking to a lot of Americans. You're not talking to the people who make up the most prevalent points of view in our society. And that was true when I was running for president as a Democrat. That's certainly true on the other side. Americans know that right now these closed party processes are distorting everyone's political incentives and pushing our leaders towards more extreme points of view than most Americans actually believe.
I wanted to ask you about a specific incident that I remember covering. Back in 2020, you were not initially given a speaking slot at the Democratic National Convention, despite being the first Asian American man ever to run for president as a Democrat. Why do you think that happened, Andrew, and what did you take away from that?
I think Democrats kind of look around at the people they think should be on a list, and I didn't necessarily fit in. And so when you have an initial cut, Andrew Yag's not there, and then someone's like, oh, wait, maybe he should be there. So that's an experience that kind of exemplifies the sense I got on the trail over time. And the point of view I represent, I think, really does resonate with a lot of Americans who know that there's this political industrial complex that is seeing to it that a lot of our candidates are saying things that are poll tested and consultant vetted, and it's not working at all. All that's happening is more and more Americans are losing trust, losing faith, and that's how you wind up with someone like Donald Trump as your president.
So how would this work, Andrew? Is the Forward Party, as you envision it, a true third party, as we've seen in the past? Or is it more a set of principles for now that people of, say, other parties would support? How exactly would that work?
Thank you, Elaine. The Forward Party is an inclusive, popular movement you can join as a registered Democrat, Independent, Republican, and our main mission is just to fix the incentives so that our government will actually listen to us and work for us as opposed to who it's working for right now, which is a set of party insiders. So we can go to states around the country, as they already did in Alaska, and shift to open primaries and ranked choice voting where anyone can run from any party. There is no spoiler effect. You can vote for whomever you like, and no one can complain to you that you're messing it up for one side or the other. Real independent parties will emerge. The Forward Party is a movement that's going to enable our democracy to actually stand the test of time. Because this duopoly, again, it's creaking, it's cracking, it's 150 years old, and it's not working at all, but it doesn't know how to reform itself. So that's what the Forward Party is designed to change. It's a movement that can include people of any political alignment that just want the country to work better.
In this polarized environment, though, realistically, it seems that when you talk about having people of different parties coming together, it seems like a fantasy for many people who have witnessed, such bitter divisions in our country.
Well, the divisions are born of these terrible political incentives, Elaine, and then the media compounds those incentives. Not you, you're awesome, but the media compounds those incentives by separating us into ideological camps. And then you have social media pouring gasoline on the whole thing. So when you talk to thousands of Americans in real life, as I have, we actually agree on a lot of things. But then you get into politics and media and social media, then it seems like we're at each other's throats. And unfortunately, that sense is becoming more powerful and prevalent over time. So if enough of us come together and say, we know it's not working, let's change it, we actually speak for the majority of Americans. Independents outnumber Democrats or Republicans in terms of self-identification. And over half of Democrats and Republicans, at least registered Democrats and Republicans, want to see this change. A lot of Democrats and Republicans who aren't exactly huge fans of their own parties.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what I'm wondering. Why not try to make these changes from within as a Democrat? Because, as you know, there are going to be some people who say, look, this is predictable that after an unsuccessful presidential bid, after an unsuccessful bid for mayor of New York City, that someone would go ahead and try to say, well, we've got to reform this two-party system.
If your goal is to pass these ballot initiatives in red states, purple states, blue states around the country, you can't really do that from within a party. And my founding of the Forward Party is based upon not just ideas I've had, but if you look at folks who've studied this, like Lee Drutman, who's a political scientist, or Lawrence Lessig, or Ezra Klein, or Jonathan Haidt, everyone's been trying to point out that our duopoly is designed to turn us against each other, to polarize us more, and not to deliver results. So that's something that we can all see around us. It's getting more and more extreme every day. And to me, it's a very clear question, Elaine, is are we going to allow this duopoly to grind us into dust and lead us to the next civil war? Or are we going to make a change? It's really that simple.
So then what are the next steps as you see them, the next concrete, tangible steps that need to be taken, and what are you going to be doing toward that end?
In Alaska in 2020, they actually shifted from closed party primaries for the Republican Party in their case, because it's a red state, to open primaries and ranked choice voting. And you've already seen the results in terms of those legislators feeling more free and independent and able to make decisions that might not go along with party leadership. So we need to do the same thing in other states around the country 12 months from now in 2022. The Forward Party will be leading in the charge to try and make these reforms happen. We'll also be supporting local candidates and congressional candidates who are aligned with a vision of an actual functioning democracy that has open primaries, ranked choice voting, term limits for members of Congress so they don't go to D.C. and stay there forever, in essence. So these are common sense changes that most Americans are for, and we're going to make them a reality in 2022, 12 months from now.
All right, before we let you go, I have to ask, is it true, Andrew, that you cast your first ever vote for New York City mayor on Tuesday?
I did vote. It was a good time. Like most New Yorkers, I voted in gubernatorial, presidential elections, obviously the mayoral primary that just passed. But I do want to point out that the vast majority of the races in New York City were just a formality, because if you win the Democratic primary, you win the whole thing. And so it's no wonder that if you look at the turnout in an election like the one that just passed, it's under 15% in New York City, and that's the norm. So someone looking at someone and saying, oh, it's unusual that you voted. It's actually unusual that you voted in New York City because we know it's a rigged game and whoever is running on one team wins the whole thing. And it's that way in 83% of the country. It's one reason why so many of us are sick of politics, because we know it's theater a lot of the time. We have to make it so our votes actually count, and then you would see our investment in politics rise as a people.
What was that like, casting that ballot? And I have to also follow up and ask, did Eric Adams receive your vote?
Well, one of the joys of democracy is you can vote for whomever you like, and you can keep it to yourself or share it as you see fit. But I will say that it's been fun being an independent, because I feel like people have to earn my vote, and it's not necessarily that they just have a particular letter next to their name. And that's the way it should be in elections around the country. It's one reason why, again, so many of us are so despondent about the path ahead, because we know that so many of these officials take us for granted. They're setting us up by saying, what are you going to do, vote for the other team? We have to make it so that there are more possibilities, more genuine alternatives, and then you'll see the results that we get improve. And we don't have that much time, because we can see where we're heading right now.
That's right. Midterms will be here before we know it. Andrew Yang, I hope you'll come back and talk to us here as your efforts get underway. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course, Elaine. It's great to see you again. I still remember my first interview when I was running for president, so I'll definitely be back.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.